to say something that's quite crazy and outlandish and radical. And I'm just going to say, should we close the borders for Oregon, California, Washington State, Rhode Island? These are all community spread coronavirus hotbeds that are teeming with new viruses that we don't even know about, new cases that are not being properly diagnosed right now. The leader in the amount of cases being diagnosed is South Korea because they have enough testing kits. They have tested over 80,000 of their citizens. Meanwhile, I think USA is lagging behind with like 15,000 kits. With I think I read 30,000, 60,000 more kits on the way. And so, because of the highly diagnosed situations where they're going from car to car and they're doing mouth swabs and they're testing people like you see it in the news. And I think that you should really, really consider what happened in Wuhan and throughout China, because China had a very close window of having the cases being reported in one city. And then if they had closed down Wuhan, what would have happened? It would have contained the spread and not allowed those people traveling during Lunar New Year to all those neighboring cities. Now, granted, it might not have spread as fast, but if they clamped down in that city, there would have been more containment, if there is such a thing. But this disease is spreading so easily from person to person because incubation period-wise is anywhere from 2 to 14 days, and during those 2 to 14 days, people are just walking around with the infection, and they're just not like the normal flu. You would sit home and be incapacitated. You start feeling sick like after 2 days, and then you would self-isolate just because you're in bed bound. You're like, you want to stay in bed, you don't feel well, you just stay in your room. But here, the coronavirus people are feeling fine for like up to a week. They're just talking and they're spreading it, and then suddenly they start feeling sick, and then they contain themselves. And that's why I believe the rate of transmission is anywhere from, estimates are anywhere from 4 to 8 people for every one infected person, because no one's self-containing themselves. No one's going to bed and resting in isolation like they would before the flu. And I hear this argument a lot, and I just want to touch upon this real quick, is that people are saying, oh, there's like so many more people that died this season from the influenza or regular flu. How come no one's talking about that? This is blown way out of proportion. Well, I just got to keep hammering on this because this is only a few month old infection and flu, so it's spreading quite rapidly. Anywhere, it's just been a few months, and already it's crippled China's economy and people and all their major cities. I mean, we got to look at the track record of this disease, and why did China go all up in arms? Why did China shut down all their major airports? They closed down their city afterwards. And this is very important to look at as a case study, what happened to China and what's coming for the USA, because right now USA, we're kind of like in that beginning stage of December, what happened in China, but we have a head start. We know what this disease is about. We have the genetic makeup. We're trying to go for a vaccine, great, but this thing can spread like wildfire. And if you look at the patterns and recognize what happens, I mean, it's kind of like a chess game. You got to look at 1 or 2, 3 steps ahead and 4 or 5 steps ahead. So if, again, Wuhan is that like major city size of New York, and it's spread like wildfire. Right now, there are a few cities in the West Coast that are becoming a Wuhan's. And the logic is, if we're closing our boundaries and having travel restrictions to Italy, to South Korea, to Iran, these other highly infectious cities, why aren't we closing off the borders? And I know it's a huge faux pas, and like people are like, oh, that's a drastic move, but I mean, it's already spreading so fast. And if we had closed down some of the international flights between LAX and Seoul, Korea, and some of these other countries, kind of close our borders like some of these other countries have done, then you could contain and have an argument for containment. So right now we're in this beginning stage, and if we closed our state borders, kind of like what China would have done if they closed their borders with Wuhan, instead of letting everyone just travel freely between that major city and other major cities like Beijing, and now Beijing is shut down still. I mean, they've been shut down for like a month, right? So the argument quickly is that you can contain uh, and I don't want to use the word contain. You can help containment, and you can help through short-term pain, right? Because I was just talking to this other gentleman at a brunch, and he was like, "They're not going to do that," and I'm like, "Well, why not?" Because like the economy, they can't shut down the economy. Like this is already shutting down our economy, and we need to take some drastic steps. And if you will, like if it's gangrene, you gotta cut off the hand for a bit, and not forever. I mean, you just shut down the border for a while, for like a month, and have people be contained in California. Only essential travelers go in between, but you can't just have everybody just traveling in and out of LAX and like all to the neighboring other cities with all these domestic flights. This might be too late already, and if we want to take a page out of China's playbook, we shut down those particular cities and the borders. You can have some type of containment. They tried to do it, but they did it a little too late, right? After everyone had traveled, a mass travel season. So right now there is such a big event, and you can mitigate while it's still nascent, when it's still isolated in those small communities in California, in Seattle, there's already a report that in a nursing home, a lot of people are showing respiratory symptoms in that particular nursing home where that one person had died and passed away, in the first U.S. case. So we need to take some radical steps, and to close the border is of a state is kind of unprecedented, but this is a disease that's unprecedented. And yeah, it's not going to affect the younger people like you and me, like people who are like not immune compromised, doesn't have heart issues, diabetes, who don't have pre-existing health risk, who have lung issues, because it tends to affect the lungs the most, and to have severe respiratory distress, and then it affects the liver and kidneys because there's more stress to the system. So these are a lot of people are passing away. What will happen in the future is that we would have to protect our elders. I mean, I particularly have parents who are old, so I want to see them pass through this ordeal. And I'm sure a lot of people have loved ones and grandparents and community members and people who they cherish that are older and who are immune compromised, who are obese. These are all people, and sadly enough, this may wipe out and be like a medical purge of some sort, like the Spanish flu pandemic right after World War I. So you got to look up some of the history on that, and how we've developed our air travel and transmission rates so much higher because of our infrastructure, of our airplane infrastructure since World War I. So this, in some ways, can be even worse. I don't want to be a harbinger of bad news. I don't want to sound like I am freaking out, but to take actionable steps. And what is the ultimate goal here for me to make this video? It's to propose and change the thought of our society, and to change the readiness of a lot of our governments to hit up your senators and hit up the president, retweet this, share this video with people that you think, and realize and open to the fact the chess moves, the next few moves are very important in battling this, and people aren't considering it, and they're not taking this seriously because the flu has killed some more people, like I said, but the mortality rate is much higher, anywhere from 2 to 15% in the older population and 2% for the entire population. So compared to the flu, which is only 0.1%. So there are some scary headlines that say this coronavirus is 20 times more deadlier than the regular flu, which is, I guess, technically true, but that's a little bit of a scare headline. But nonetheless, it will occupy. And what happened with China is that they overflooded the hospital system with so many sick patients that the triage needs to figure out like who's not savable, who's in really bad condition. And I mean, I saw a report that Britain only had 15 beds that were fit for people with severe acute respiratory distress, so people that need to be on ventilators. And I'm like, that can't be true. Like 15 people in an entire country, I don't buy that. But nonetheless, like, you just think to yourself, how many hospitals around each community have the resources to handle an influx of, let's say, even 20 patients that all have if the healthcare system, if every major city had at least 1,000 people who were really sick, I mean, the healthcare workers are dying in China because they're just overworked, not getting enough sleep, and getting re-exposed to this disease. You got to really ask yourself, like, can we handle like a mass public health issue? Now, when that becomes an issue, when people have a normal, everyday type of occurrence where they're having some sickness, or let's say even the flu, you're going to go into the hospital, catch coronavirus, or you're not just going to get proper medical care because all the healthcare workers are overworked and have other trying issues to try to save all these people at once. This is not going to look pretty. This is going to be very much like, again, look at the pattern, look at history. History repeats itself. So be very wary, be very mindful of what's going to happen in the next few weeks, in the next few months. This is just a historical way of me documenting that this is going to come. What can we do? Let's try to shut down the state borders. I'm not trying to lock. I have family in California. I don't say this lightly, but you're going to have to isolate the states so that you maintain, or isolate the cities even, and cut down the borders and have containment of the cities, because the short-term pain, the short-term problems of that is going to far outweigh the national scale of all the states outside of the border, the east and west coast, because east coast is getting hit with all the people who've encountered with Italy, and all the west coast states are getting hit with all the people who've been in any Asian country. In the center where I am right now in Austin, Texas, there's no international flights, but we only have 1 degree of separation from LAX to Austin, right? There's only one more flight there, so I might be able to be here, and it's too late. This video is too late, but hopefully someone out there is going to see this and understand the truth behind this, and then share this with their friends. So we also have a link in the description for survival guide, and we'll keep updating that link and updating the news with that PDF file as new recommendations come out. But it's based on a lot of CDC, and it's a good infographic, and I hope that really helps. And a lot of those recommendations on there are already passing with time, that, you know, the preparation before the pandemic and the panic ensues, and it's already starting to happen with all the people overbuying and hoarding water and toilet tissues from what I hear, and hand sanitizers and disinfectants are already being sold out in all the major grocery stores, and all the masks are been sold out for weeks now, and I already got my mask, but not really wearing it because it's not really high risk right now in this part of the country. So yeah, be well, be safe, keep your guard up, and stay informed, right? Keep reading, and don't panic, because panic never helps anybody. But have a plan, and let's try to look out for not ourselves. I hear a lot of people just saying, "Oh, I'm fine," but this is a public health issue. We need to watch out for each other. We need to watch out for our elders, our parents, loved ones, like I said before. So, all right.